I'm a social worker for the homeless, and one case will always haunt me for the rest of my life. I know what this is about, the man across my desk sneered. You're trying to find out why I'm a psycho or a junkie or a career criminal. You're trying to find out why I can't just live in a little plaster box and pay my taxes like everybody else. I'm trying to find out who you are, Marcus, I sighed. And I would never call anyone one of those things. A person is more than just the problems they face. Problems? You don't know shit about my problems. I may not be like those sad fuckers out there. He gestured to the other homeless waiting in the hallway of the centre. But I've got big fucking problems. That's why I'm here, Marcus. Why don't you talk to me about what's troubling you? Because I want to sleep under the stars tonight, not get dragged off to a padded cell in a straitjacket. I leaned forward and pushed my glasses up, stroking my chin, like I just couldn't find the right thing to say. It was a disarming gesture that I found helped people to open up to me. As a social worker specialising in homelessness, I needed every helpful strategy that I could get. Most of the people I worked with viewed me, at best, as a waste of their time, and at worst, a threat. The more I understand, the more I'll be able to help. That's all I want, Marcus, is to help you. Will you let me do that? The 20-something blonde across the desk from me rolled his eyes, rubbed red and dark-pitted from lack of sleep. Apart from that, however, Marcus wasn't a typical case. He was well-dressed and clean-shaven, even if his suit had seen better days and his eyes bore the red-rubbed, dark-pitted signs of insomnia. Look, if I talk about this, there might be consequences. Horrible consequences. It might even bring her into your life, and I don't want to be responsible for that. I've got enough shit to deal with already. Marcus grabbed the arms of the chair and pushed himself to his feet. If he walked out that door, I was sure I'd never get another chance to help him. Marcus, it says on your file that you never sleep in the same place twice. Why is that? Marcus paused, his worn-out pack halfway up his back. Through its bulging seams, I could see his tent, sleeping bag, and all clothing packed neatly away inside. It's because of her, isn't it? Marcus sat back down. You have to promise me that if I get locked up anywhere, the young man muttered gruffly, and that if I ever get picked up by the cops or whatever, you'll do your best to spring me out the very next night. I need you to promise me that, and I mean it. Look, I know it's a tall order, and it's okay to say no. I'll just walk out that door, you'll fill out your little form, and we can both pretend that this conversation never happened. As he looked across the desk at me with those soulful, sleepless blue eyes, I had the strangest feeling that he was the one taking pity on me. Marcus, I grabbed the man's hand solemnly. I promise that I'll do anything and everything in my power to meet your conditions, should they ever arise. Marcus looked around as though to reassure himself that no one else was listening. The troubled expression on his face was one I recognised. He was struggling to convince himself to open his inner world to a stranger. I let him sit in silence for a while, knowing full well that at that point, what happened next was up to Marcus. Sometimes it feels so right it feels wrong, he said suddenly. You ever been in a situation like that? You find the perfect job, or the perfect girlfriend, or the perfect opportunity, but there's something off about it, know what I mean? I nodded. It was like that with the apartment. Marcus went on. My lease was running out and I couldn't find anywhere that wasn't an hour away from work or a total scam. Then I found it. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms, newly renovated but in a handsome old building. It was so close to my work I could just walk there, and the price, it was less than half of what I used to pay. I flipped through the contract looking for a catch, but there wasn't one. The place was rented by a small property management group that only owned a few buildings. I seemed like a reliable renter, they said, and I guess they liked that. Marcus laughed bitterly. I still remember how it looked, looking around all those bare wooden floors and perfectly white empty rooms. I still hear my gut instincts whispering to me, something is wrong, get out of here now. But what can I say? For $800 a month in the heart of downtown, I signed right away. I moved in a few days later after work. It was late and I was too tired to mess around with unpacking all those cardboard boxes. I fell asleep on the bare mattress without even bothering to take the suit off. Marcus rubbed his sleeve thoughtfully and I realised he was referring to the same suit he was wearing now. I had horrible dreams that night. But try as I might, Couldn't remember any of them the following morning. Marcus shuddered. Then I noticed the footprints. It looked like some barefoot person had crossed the dusty floor and stood just inches away from where I'd been sleeping. Funny thing was, those barefoot prints, they started from the wall and didn't turn back, like whoever it had been walked out of solid brick, hovered over me all night, then disappeared. Was I creeped out? Sure, a little. But I also had to be at work in an hour, and I had no idea in which one of those damn boxes my coffee pot was hiding. The next night, a door slammed in the hallway and Marcus jumped. Look, do you mind if we just take this outside and talk out there? Like, walk and talk for the next part? I need a cigarette and I really don't want to tell this part of the story indoors, just in case. It was my policy to never meet outside the office. I'd heard horror stories of caseworkers who were robbed at gunpoint, stabbed with dirty needles, or simply got too attached and crossed the boundaries of professionalism in ways that ruined their careers. I don't know why, but I made an exception for Marcus. Perhaps I too needed some fresh air. There was something claustrophobic about his story, the way his eyes kept darting around the room. After work on the second day, I was beat. A picky client with a complicated problem had trapped me on the phone all day, and the stress burned the image of those creepy footprints right out of my mind. When I walked in the door, I kicked off my shoes, chugged a glass of water, and fell asleep onto the mattress face first. I only meant to take a little nap, then keep unpacking, but when I woke up, it was already dark and someone was chewing on my toes. I stopped walking. I know what you're thinking, Marcus sneered. It does sound crazy. My brain didn't want to accept it either. I didn't want to believe that a naked old woman with white hair hanging down past her waist was gnawing on my foot with a mouthful of twisted teeth. I yelled loud enough to wake up the entire city block and kicked her right in the face, or at least I tried to, but my heel went through her like she wasn't even there. No matter how I kicked and squirmed and fought, it didn't matter. She just kept biting. When I ran away, she slithered after me on the floor like a boneless goddamn snake, always nibbling, licking blood out of the bite marks on my legs. I threw pots and knives, said the Lord's Prayer, even swatted at her with a broom. Nothing worked. In the end, I ran out of the apartment, barefoot and bleeding, with 2 of my toes missing. Of course, my neighbours called the cops, but when they went back inside with me, it was like she was never there. I was a mess, Marcus went on. I think I actually cried on the cop's shoulder. The hospital wanted to keep me for observation for a few days, and I said yes to everything. I mean, I sure as hell didn't want to go back to that place, and I was in no condition to work. Every time I looked at my feet, the reality hit me like a punch in the chest. A ghostly old woman really had walked out of the wall of my apartment, and she really had chewed off my 2 right toes. The cuts were as neat as though I'd been born without them, and there wasn't any blood in the apartment either. It was like she'd lapped it all up. So, no one else could see the old woman who attacked you, I summarised. It's not like I don't have proof. I could show you the missing toes if you want. Marcus knelt to take off his shoe. Hey, no, there's no need for that. I moved to stop him, and as I did, I felt a ragged gap in the flesh of his arm beneath his suit. During the few seconds that my fingers pushed against it, I couldn't help but notice that the gap was the same shape and size as a human mouth. She looked at me. What text messages? Don't play dumb, Casey, I replied coldly. I read them all. I know what you've been saying, what you're planning. I don't... No, let's not draw this out. Show her, Pete. Pete brought up the messages and handed her the phone. She nervously took it and read. Oh my gosh, good lord. Guys, I didn't write these, that's not even my number. What? Pete said. But the first message you asked, you thanked me for letting you stay over. Why are you denying this, Casey? I know about your history. I know you're sleeping with Bobby Crichton while he was dating Maria. You kind of set the precedent for yourself, don't you think? I expected Casey to defend herself further. Instead, her eyes fell to the phone still in her hand. Guys, you should see this. Pete took the phone and I read it over his shoulder. Icy fingers danced down my spine. The other one is cute, but I want you all to myself. And I always get my way. I need to be with you tonight, Pete. Don't make me wait, or I'll kill them both. Oh my god, who? Pete gripped my shoulder and stared just beyond the kitchen. doing in my house? Her eyes glistened and tears ran down her dirt-smeared cheeks. Monica, she was Pete's manager. I was completely at a loss as I watched this woman I had known for 3 years twitch like a feral animal. Her typically composed hair was a rat's nest and her bare feet were filthy. She brought with her a pungent smell of piss mixed with standing water. Pete, do something, I begged, holding onto his elbow tightly. Monica, it's okay, we can figure this out. 1 second, just wait 1 second. Don't do anything rash, please. But it was clear that anger and hurt had already poisoned her mind. She twisted her mouth into a snarl and suddenly rushed at me, hammer raised high above her head. I didn't have enough time to react rationally, and only cowered with my eyes squeezed shut, hoping that Pete would protect me. I opened my eyes to find that Casey had picked up the kitchen knife and stabbed Monica in the ribcage. She withdrew the knife quickly and raised her arm to strike again. Monica howled with pain and dropped the hammer. She twisted out of Casey's next attack and scrambled back, clutching her wound. Pete dived for the hammer and Monica's eyes darted between the three of us, weighing the situation. Her eyes fell on me at last, narrowed and hateful. There was a darkness in them that I'd never seen before. I staggered back, afraid that she would dart at me, but instead she twitched her way back and bolted for the door, her red, ragged dress fluttering behind her. She disappeared into the night, leaving us utterly stunned. After the police interviewed us and took pictures of the basement, they gave us some bad news that Monica was nowhere to be found. Her apartment was vacant, and she'd somehow covered her tracks well enough to avoid detection by the police dogs. Apparently, her apartment contained some evidence of her growing obsession with my husband, photos that were taken without Pete's knowledge, personal information about both of us, and even a detailed weekly schedule of Pete's day-to-day. Pete helped us put together the pieces of Monica's final mental break. She had told Pete and his co-workers that she was going to take a quick impromptu vacation that Thursday. The reality was that she had become so consumed by jealousy when Pete mentioned that we were having a house guest. Pete thought her countering response that he never invited her over was odd, but brushed it aside with an empty promise that she could come over any time that she'd like. She'd taken him at his word quite literally. Monica had somehow gotten into the house and hauled up in our unfinished basement. Down there, the police found a phone charger, a bucket of excrement, a few dirty personal effects, and a crude table setting put together with old furniture and some items that she'd squirreled away while everyone was gone or asleep. It was like some seriously twisted version of Lady and the Tramp. We apologised profusely to Casey, but she laughed it off gracefully, despite the trauma of the night. She and Pete are asleep now, somehow. I've been writing this all night because even with the cops watching, how the hell am I supposed to sleep knowing that Monica is still out there? Especially after I'd seen that cold, unfathomable evil in her eyes. It's Casey's last night visiting, and I'll admit it's comforting to have her here. She actually invited us to Florida to stay with her and her new husband for as long as we wanted. Casey, who I begrudgingly let stay in our home, who I hadn't talked to in so long, and who I accused of such terrible things. Casey, who stabbed a deranged would-be murderer in my defence. Yeah, you bet your ass we're going to Florida tomorrow. Besides, I think Casey and I have more catching up to do.